Well, I hope that the videos that you watched yesterday and the first one today gave you a good introduction to the period of time between the wars, to the economics of the Great Depression, and how that was a global situation, and some of the challenges that presents to peace in Europe. And challenges to the peace followed a pattern throughout the 1930s. We'll see dictators taking aggressive action that are really met by only verbal protests and pleas for peace from the Western democracies. We'll see Mussolini in Italy and Hitler in Germany view that desire for peace as weakness, and we'll see them respond with new acts of aggression. Now, with hindsight, we can look back and see the shortcomings in the efforts of the democracies and these policies, but at the time, these democracies truly thought that these efforts would maintain the peace and that they would work. So what are some of the challenges to the peace? Let's talk through some of these examples. Now, the first example is going to be Japan. So Japan, one of the earliest tests of this new organization, the League of Nations. Um, uh, Japanese military leaders and nationalist thinking in Japan, believing that they should be an empire equal to those of the Western powers. And we talked about the beginning of this in the unit on imperialism. So Japan seizes Manchuria, as you can see in the yellow here on the map, in 1931. When the League of Nations condemns the aggression of Japan, Japan just decides that they're going to withdraw from the organization. There's no military enforcement mechanism in the League of Nations, so Japan simply withdraws. And once they see how easy that was and how much success Japan had in Manchuria, it gave them motivation to look for more territory and to expand. So they begin to overtake much of eastern China. And again, Europe and the United Nations and the League of Nations protest, but ultimately you can see that they do nothing. And then you can see down there in the bottom what is considered French Indochina, modern-day Vietnam, Cambodia, and Laos. Japan moves into those territories as well in 1940. Again, expanding their empire, looking for resources, because remember, Japan is an island nation without many natural resources themselves. So this is a threat to world peace without much resistance from the Western democracies or from the League of Nations. Italy is also a threat to the peace. So Benito Mussolini, who had fought in World War I, believed that the Treaty of Versailles should have given Italy more land than it ultimately did. And now Mussolini is a very fascinating character, and you saw a little bit about him in the videos. He was a writer. He was a very charismatic speaker. He began attracting followers in Italy, including angry veterans of World War I who weren't getting the opportunity that they wanted, opponents of the monarchy, socialists, anarchists, all coming together, attracted to the charisma of Mussolini, and they form what becomes known as the Fascist Party, and Mussolini is the founder of fascism. Mussolini relies on his thugs, basically, his black shirt gangs, to terrorize the population, harass anyone that might oppose him. The fascists and the black shirts get so powerful that when Mussolini marches his black shirts into Rome, the king invites him to become the prime minister of the government. Eventually, he becomes a totalitarian dictator. He gives himself the name Il Duce, which is the leader. And in the name of keeping order and structure, he suspends elections, he outlaws all other political parties, and he establishes a dictatorship. What is his goal? Forming a new Roman Empire. Again, going back to that legacy of the Roman Empire. In 1935, he invades and conquers Ethiopia. Now remember, Ethiopia, back in the age of imperialism, the late 1800s, they were the only successful resistance to, in this case, Italian imperialism, and they defeated the Italians. So where does Mussolini go? when he has the power and a more modern military back to Ethiopia. Ethiopia's king appeals to the League of Nations, but again, the League responds in the only way that it really can. It's not equipped to respond militarily or with peacekeepers, and it puts economic sanctions on Italy. They didn't have any power to enforce any military action. So again, the message these dictators receive is the West is just going to let them do what they want. In 1936, Hitler's also going to test the will of the Western democracies, and again, he finds it weak. The first thing he does is build up the German military, going beyond the restrictions of the Treaty of Versailles. And in 1936, he sends troops into the Rhineland, which is a region between France and Germany. And according to the Treaty of Versailles, it was supposed to be demilitarized, no military in this area. And Hitler, defiantly in opposition to the Treaty of Versailles, sends troops in.
Ein Volk, ein Reich, ein Wille und eine schönere deutsche Zukunft.
In Germany, too, the new mass media were part of the national myth-making machine. Joseph Goebbels, as Hitler's Minister of Enlightenment and Propaganda, controlled the printed press and exploited the power of pictures and sound. At Goebbels' direction, the government put loudspeakers in the streets and made cheap radios available to every shop, school, and home. Every German was now within the sound of Hitler's voice.
To have a real radio, that was fantastic. Every day there were political programs, and I learned a lot from the radio. I thought it was great, but for those others thought it was one of the main weapons now brainwashed.
Propaganda films promoted the glorious Germanic world of tomorrow.
We were told that we were the top nation on earth. We were the chosen people. We were the heaven blessings. We called it the master race. And that we were more intelligent and better looking and stronger than all the others.
And then it was our golden given duty to force our life onto all the others.
To glorify the master race on film, Hitler's choice was Germany's preeminent filmmaker Fritz Lang. Lang, sensing the time when one could say no to the Führer had passed, left for Paris. The powerful film propaganda post would go to Hitler's second choice, director Leni Riefenstahl. Her film, Triumph of the Will, used the 1934 Nazi Party Congress as a vast backdrop designed to make Hitler look like a god.
Military music was played and he marched down the center aisle, flanked by heaven knows how many gorgeously uniformed creatures.
And they would go behind the lectern, standing there, silent, waiting, until the tension rose. And then he would start.
Der 6. Parteitag der Bewegung geht zu Ende. Was für Millionen Deutsche, die außerhalb unserer Reihen stehen,
Slowly revving up,
das große persönliche und geistige Treffen der alten Reiter als unsere
finally
Partei
reached a tremendous
Anruf war, jede Führung zu behalten, wahrzunehmen und nicht mehr abzuwehren. In ihrer Organisation stahlhart.
sat in an audience like that, you just swept along.
Die Jugend ist unverschrieben und verfallen mit Leib.
Never before had mass communication been more effective. Never before had it been used with more sinister intent.
Meine Kommilitonen, deutsche Männer und Frauen. Das Zeitalter eines überspitzten jüdischen Intellektualismus ist nun zu Ende.
Only 4 months after Hitler came to power, bonfires burned in the streets of German cities. The flames were fed with books by Thomas Mann, Albert Einstein, Helen Keller, Sigmund Freud, and other authors who were deemed subversive to the German people.
Hier sind die geistige Grundlage der Novemberrepublik zu
Democracy in Germany was dead.
Aber diese Trümmer
Hitler's own book, Mein Kampf, My Struggle, was now the blueprint for Germany's future. In the new Germany, Nazi party thugs, the paramilitary brown shirts, would patrol the streets to root out and arrest anyone who stood in Hitler's way. Thousands of political opponents were sent to hundreds of concentration camps. The first was near the German village of Dachau.
Everyone knew that you could be sent to such a camp without due process of law. We had a verse that was widely recited: Lieber Gott, mach mich stumm, dass ich nicht nach Dachau komm. Dear God, strike me dumb so that I won't be sent to Dachau.